the Slayer's shadow. At dawn, he was just a cobbler. By nightfall, he became an enemy of the church and a slayer of heroes. Cade of Calder arrived in Dunport with a hunting license, but within hours he was marked by paladins, haunted by wraiths, and hunted by demons. He doesn't kill for glory. He kills to undo the darkness he once unleashed. The Scandir whisper from the void. The church calls him a heretic, but Cade knows one truth. A monster isn't the one who's ugly. It's the one pretending to be holy. Genres: dark fantasy, epic fantasy, monster hunter, supernatural thriller, anti-church adventure. Chapter 1. The Dawn Ambush. They arrived at dawn. A flame-haired priestess of the Ember cult and a dusky-skinned apprentice of the last archmage. Giggling softly, their eyes gleaming with the reckless haze of too much wine, the two women crept toward the bed of the cobbler, their movements as stealthy as they were tipsy. But Cade, the cobbler, played his part well, feigning ignorance of the pair's clumsy approach. Their steps creaked on the weathered floorboards of the old tavern room, betraying their every move. The women's laughter echoed through the dimly lit chamber, a clear giveaway of their playful intent, yet their excitement only seemed to grow with each misstep. Slipping under the heavy woolen blanket, the two mischief-makers brushed against Cade's warm frame, only to flinch back when he cracked open one eye, revealing a glint that seemed almost otherworldly in the faint light. A blink, and the illusion faded, leaving only the rugged features of a man. A stray beam of moonlight slid across his collarbone, casting his gaze in shadow, though a sly smile played on his lips, hinting at secrets untold. The women hesitated, peering into the darkness, but finding nothing unusual, they sighed in relief and pressed closer, emboldened by the moment. Cade pulled both women against his broad, heat-radiating chest with one strong arm. Their slender forms curved under his grip, their hands exploring. Tentative at first, then bold. Wrapping them in a bear-like embrace, he chuckled, his voice low and purring. So, a priestess and a mage's apprentice sneak into a cobbler's bed. Cade's grin widened. Sounds like the start of a tavern joke, don't you think? The women squeaked, too caught up in the moment to reply. Tossing aside the blanket, Cade bared his teeth in a roguish grin, deftly slipping the nightgowns from their shoulders. His lips found the priestess's, hungry and fierce, before the apprentice joined in, her hesitation melting away. The apprentice settled atop Cade's sturdy frame, one knee resting on the edge of the oak bed frame. He smirked at her inexperience, all the while his hands roamed the priestess's curves. The flame-haired woman shifted, climbing atop him, her thighs gripping him tightly as if to anchor herself in the fleeting haze of desire. She feared waking from this dreamlike moment. Her fingers traced his stubbled jaw, teasingly defiant as Cade continued to savor the company. The priestess arched like a cat, slipping from his grasp as dawn's light began to paint the room in soft hues. Cade tried to shift, but she pinned him with a firm press of her hands, her hips moving with deliberate intent until she drew from him the response she craved. Satisfied, the priestess slid off, allowing the apprentice her turn. The darker-skinned woman hesitated, her attempts to join earlier thwarted by her companion's playful dominance. Cade, ever the opportunist, pulled her close, stealing a kiss that tasted of cherries, his rough hands exploring her smooth skin as he began anew. Chapter 2. The Hero Slayer's Trade. When he left, the townsfolk whispered for weeks about the stranger from the southern dunes who'd arrived via the Serpent's Pass, docking at Flea Harbor. That day, they met their first hero slayer, a man who'd wandered onto their misty isle by chance. Cade strolled through the cobblestone streets of Dunport, lost in thought, his pack rhino trudging behind, laden with gear. Dusk settled over the city, and the merchants' stalls, brimming with smoked fish, trinkets, and leather goods, began to shutter. Passers-by gawked at the beast, but its menacing glare kept the curious at bay. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Dunport's narrow alleys emptied, the chill of early autumn biting the air. Cade, cloaked in a fur-lined traveler's mantle, pressed on toward his destination, undeterred by the cold. He reached the rusty anchor, a weathered tavern, and flashed a crooked grin. Places like this brimmed with life at night, sailors, merchants, and rogues of every stripe crowding the tables. The familiar stench of stale ale, smoked herring, and sweat greeted him like an old friend as he stepped inside. Cade hailed from Cawdor, a sun-scorched southern city that shaped him into the man he was, a cobbler by trade, a hero-slayer by calling. Trained in the arcane arts of light, he hunted monsters and self-proclaimed gods who dared tarnish the title of hero. His craft was one of blood, blackmail, and bounty, and he relished every moment. After stabling his rhino, startling the stableboy and horses alike with its bulk, Cade tossed the lad a silver coin from Cawdor and sauntered inside for a taste of Dunport's famed ciders and ales. The Isle of Dunport was renowned for its potent brews, black cod, and skilled courtesans. Its towering walls and lax trade laws had made it a bustling hub, though not the region's capital. Cade cared little for politics. He was here to work. The gruff innkeeper, sporting a greasy apron, a fiery beard, and an impressive mustache, eyed Cade warily. With a flourish, he sliced a ripe peach in half with a cleaver, offering the better half to the stranger. "Try this, friend," the innkeeper boomed. "Special today. Black cod in wine sauce, our finest cider from Port Haven, or Cawdor's red wines. Got a roasted boar with honey glaze, too, fresh from the oven." He sized up Cade's fine cloak and exotic features, marking him as a wealthy foreigner. "What'll it be, sir?" "Let's start with a cider," Cade replied, his voice smooth as honey. "Then some cod, and maybe a chat about work in this fine city." He slid a silver coin across the counter, his smile sharpening. "Got any leads, friend?" The innkeeper pocketed the coin, nodding knowingly. "A hero slayer, eh? Been a while since one of your kind graced our shores." "Dunport's small, so jobs are scarce unless you take a contract from Lord Varick, our governor. He's a scoundrel, but he pays fair. You're Carl if he's worth the hassle." He twirled his mustache. "If you're after quick coin, a pack of werewolves prowls the docks at night. There's a bounty for the Alpha's head, a sack of gold. Oh, and a doppelganger's been causing trouble, preying on women under the full moon. 5 maidens ruined, the fiends raising ghouls and hiring thugs. Bring me its head, and I'll throw in a chest of silver and a feast." Cade smirked, shedding his hood. His dark hair drew eyes. Foreigners from Cawdor were rare here. He shrugged off his cloak, revealing a worn leather jacket rigged with weapon straps and a vest packed with potions and tools. A sleek crossbow hung at his back, alongside a trio of blades. "Lord Varick, you say?" Cade mused. The innkeeper didn't answer. "Listen, foreigner," slurred a drunken guard, staggering up. "That doppelganger's ruining lives, stole Squire Roland's wife." He spat into someone's mug. "Is it true Keldorans have noble blood, blue as the sea?" a gravelly voice called from the shadows. "Or are you all just thieves and killers? Speak, stranger. We've never seen your kind alive." A hulking figure in gleaming armor emerged, towering over the room. He roused his dozing comrades, who drew their swords like groggy specters. "I know you," the knight growled, spitting at Cade's feet. "Cade of Cawdor, hero slayer. As a champion of the Radiant Church, I name you a spawn of darkness. You're unfit for this world. Guards, seize him!" He hefted a massive mace studded with golden spikes. "I am Sir Maxim of Dunport, servant of Solara, and I'll purge you, heretic." Cade spun, snatching his crossbow. With a flick, he loaded paralyzing bolts and fired, dropping the enthralled guards one by one. Heroes like Maxim often bent weaker minds to their will, treating mortals as fodder. Cade hunted those who overstepped, sparing only the redeemable. Holstering his crossbow, he drew a black steel longsword, whispering an incantation that ignited faint runes along the blade. Tossing a purple crystal, he struck it mid-air, sending it hurtling toward Maxim. It darkened and slammed into the knight's enchanted armor, spreading rust-like corruption. "What sorcery is this?" Maxim roared. "My armor is god-forged. I'm invincible." His movement slowed as the rust consumed his plate, sapping his strength. "They spoke true about you," he gasped, fear creeping in. "Calderon!" Cade closed the distance, driving his blade through Maxim's chest. Pinning the knight to the wall, he severed his head with a second blade, cleaning both on the knight's tabard. He tucked the shrunken head into a pouch, ignoring the gasps of onlookers. As boots thundered outside, armored guards in Dunport's silver plate stormed in, crossbows trained on Cade. He raised a grey token etched with emerald runes. "I hold a license from His Holiness, Prelate the Seventh," Cade said calmly. "Your men are fine, just under his control. They'll wake in an hour. I'm a 5th-tier hero slayer. Let's take this to Lord Varick and settle it peacefully, shall we?" "Face down, scum!" barked a captain in gleaming armor. More guards entered, weapons ready. Cade sighed, pocketing his token and lying on the filthy floor, hands behind his head. This was routine, saving people from rogue heroes only to be branded a villain. Envy and fear twisted gratitude into suspicion. To Cade, most folk were no better than tavern roaches. "Lord Varick will sort you out," a guard muttered, clapping enchanted shackles on Cade. "Hero or knight, doesn't matter." They marched him through Dunport's winding streets, past glass-domed manors and merchant houses, toward the governor's fortress, a towering citadel doubling as the city's prison. Rumors spoke of dungeons where Varick dealt with dissenters, and beneath it, vast catacombs hid secrets best left buried. Chapter 3. The Governor's Gambit. Lord Varick's steward, Ingmar, studied the shrunken head of Sir Maxim with a single gleaming eye, a faint smirk curling his lips. The man was striking, tall, blond, and regal, like a gilded statue of some forgotten deity that stood proudly in his office. Scratching his stubbled chin, he shifted his gaze to Cade, appraising the cobbler-turned-hero slayer with renewed curiosity. Ingmar had seen knights and rogues aplenty, but a true hero slayer was a rarity in Dunport. "Out, all of you!" Ingmar barked at the guards. "You, Hunter, stay. Keep those shackles on for now. I've got an offer for you." Cade settled into a cushioned chair, feigning ease despite the enchanted cuffs. "I've heard whispers of your kind," Ingmar continued, leaning back, "and of that knight you just skewered. My faith forbids summoning heroes to our world, so I'm inclined to side with you, Meister. Or is it Master? No matter." He chuckled. "My God, Ingvar, bids me drink deep and charm the tavern maids. What do your beliefs offer a hero slayer? They say you serve the Creator, but which one? And what's your reward for hunting these so-called heroes? Not all are villains. Nor you a saint. Who pulls your strings? Don't feed me tales of holy decrees. Dunport's too far from the theocrat's reach." His smirk turned sharp. "So, tell me, why'd you gut Maxim like a stray dog stealing your supper? I need to justify this to Lord Varick. Bureaucracy, you know. Who was this radiant knight? Who are you? And why'd you kill him in front of half the city? I'm all ears." Cade paused, then slipped free of the shackles with a practiced flick, rubbing his wrists under Ingmar's raised brow. Surveying the steward's opulent office, adorned with gilded armor, intricate paintings, and racks of weapons from daggers to high-tech crossbows, he tossed the cuffs onto the desk and sank into a plush leather chair opposite Ingmar. "Go on," Ingmar said, regaining his composure. "Or shall we treat you like a common thug? Dunport's a fair city, but murderers don't walk free, holy writ or no. We'll stake you out for the gulls if you don't talk. Tell me what I want, or I'll write the report myself. Think fast, Meister." He winked, his smile predatory. Cade unbuttoned his jacket, revealing his grey token, a small ebony box and a green cigar, which he lit with a crimson crystal, exhaling sweet smoke into Ingmar's face. The steward coughed, his eye narrowing with irritation. Cade offered the cigar, then opened the box, unleashing a cascade of illusions. "This world was ours," a gravelly voice intoned, "passed down from our ancestors. But outsiders breached the veil, bringing plague and ruin. When their stolen isles sank, they came here, and with them, monsters from the deep. Their arrival sparked the arcane renaissance in our lands." The voice paused as a vivid illusion of the world flickered. The cosmos grew porous, its stability shattered. Heroes came, mad and ravenous, like the Skandir of old. I forged the path of the hero slayer, hunting the monsters hiding among us. "Utter nonsense," Ingmar snorted, though his eye lingered on the fading illusion. "But that's fine smoke. Keep going. Want some ginger ale?" He pulled a crate of frosted bottles and a basket of hardened toffee from his desk. "Maxime, who was he? Priest, paladin, madman. Heroes don't visit Dunport, yet here you are, carving one up. Law's the law. What's our move, Meister? Stake or talk?" His eye glinted with intrigue. Cade's hand drifted to a dagger, but he stayed calm. "You've heard of me. Cade of Caldor. Maxim attacked me unprovoked when he learned my trade. He was a paladin, servant of Solara, a zealot of the Radiant Church." A wry smile crossed his face. "Ginger ale? You're a strange one." He eyed the offered bottle suspiciously, but took a swig, parched from the day's chaos. "Your guard's a poor excuse," he added, nibbling the toffee. "Fair enough." Ingmar grinned, downing his own bottle and snapping off a piece of toffee. "Cade, eh? The Valehaven butcher himself? Word is you raised a heroes' guild in Caldor. Fine work. Papers screamed about it for weeks." He sipped again. "They say you had help from enforcers to clear a whole district during that hero uprising. I've heard tales from Gabriel in Port Haven. What dragged you from Calder to Dunport?" His smile widened. "Caldor's my home," Cade said softly. "That's behind me. Now I'm just a hunter, a freelancer doing my duty against monsters. Like you, steward." He sighed. "I wandered to Port Haven, became a hero slayer there. I was a cobbler once, a master of my craft. Travel changes a man. I'm not the boy who left home." Ingmar nodded, as if in silent agreement. They polished off the ale and toffee, and Ingmar produced another crate of ginger ale and a tin of creamy toffee, eyeing Cade thoughtfully. The hunter's grit resonated with him, and with other candidates long fled, Cade was his best bet. "Where do you get this stuff?" Cade muttered. "I brew it myself," Ingmar beamed. "You're a hero slayer. Tougher than a cliff, but what about other beasts? Werewolves, Skandir demons? Know any exorcism tricks, or is your game just lopping off hero heads for the creator's amusement?" Ingmar opened another bottle. "And is it true your kind lacks certain vigor?" he asked with mock seriousness. "Lies," Cade scoffed. "I've killed more than men. Beasts do less harm than heroes. Trust me. A monster's just a hungry brute. Some seek vengeance. Others are as vile as heroes, seeing us as meat. Your paladin proved that." He grinned. "Skandir? Tricky but manageable. They're spirits of lore or ancestors, summoned by fools. Got a job, steward? I'm always open to work, for my own gain." His smile turned feral. "Many tried and died," Ingmar mused. 1,000 gold's not much for an exorcism. No hero slayers have come our way before. Sorcerers, mages, even a witcher. None returned. You sure about this, Meister?" Cade nodded curtly, and Ingmar laughed at his recklessness. "For gold, glory, you're a strange one. It's your life, your choice." "That's my code, old man," Cade smirked. Times change, Ingmar sighed. In my youth, I sailed to see the world. Bad luck struck. A Skandir possessed a girl, barely 5. She snapped our boatswain's neck and turned his crew into ghouls. They devoured the rest. Only I and the captain survived, preaching Ingvar's word over ginger ale. At dawn, the sun burned the ghouls, leaving us with the girl. I banished the Skandir, don't ask me how, but it left this. He bared a hand-shaped scar on his chest. That day, I became a priest. Dark times, Cade muttered. Undead, cultists, monsters everywhere. The old empire kept cities safe, but now, just ruins and rivalries. Dunport's weak, like all free cities. Ingmar rambled on about lost imperial glory and the rise of Velgard, a union of 7 cities dwarfing Dunport's power. Enough talk, Ingmar said, sobering. Lord Varric's father, Dan of Vile, was a rogue who sired Varric before the empire fell. Dan craved power, dallied with darkness. 15 years ago, he brought 99 concubines to Dunport, claiming his blood should flow in every citizen. Ingmar paused. His 100th bore twins, and rumors say Dan summoned a Skandir into them at birth. Their mother was sacrificed. Strange things followed. Dan's other children died mysteriously by plague, blade, or serpent. Varric, his last heir, sealed the twins in the old Shadow Basilica after Dan's ritual trapped them there. The temple's defiled, and we can't reclaim it. He coughed, voice thick with anger. 1,000 gold per twin's head, or 5,000 if you banish the Skandir. Varric's desperate to save his kin, possessed or not. He laughed bitterly. What of other mages or priests? Cade asked. Charlatans, Ingmar spat. The bold ones died, the smart ones fled. Too many corpses for such a small bounty. Enforcers from Port Haven might help, but they're far. How tough are you, Meister? Cade's mind drifted to past purges, burning slums, screams of the innocent, and a Skandir slipping through his grasp in a sandstorm. He shook off the memories. I've banished Skandir, slain trolls, whatever you need, for the right price. Man or monster, they're just targets. Deal then, Ingmar said, shaking Cade's hand. Don't fret about Maxim, no heroes here, just beasts to clean up. He chuckled, watching Cade's back as he left, eager to see how this tale would unfold. The office door swung open, and Ingmar stifled a curse as Lord Varric lumbered in, flanked by 2 captains who looked like children beside him. The governor was a giant, his face a grotesque mask, but his warrior's build rivaled legends. His shaved skull bore ashen runes, and his blue eyes burned with fury. His steel-shod boots echoed like thunder. Varric shed his massive breastplate, eyeing Cade with a mix of scorn and curiosity. What are you gawking at, dog? I've seen heroes and their hunters before. His voice boomed. Velgard hanged one last week. They avoid Dunport, though. He turned to a jester lurking behind him. Giles, what say you? The garishly dressed hunchback capered, and Varric nodded. Aye, we need our own hero. You're not here to kill one, are you? No heroes, my lord, Ingmar said smoothly. This is a Skandir specialist, trained in new exorcism rites. You wanted one. He's here, for 5,000, not 1. Experts don't come cheap. He winked at Cade. Bold, Varric growled, but nodded. Fine, Meister. I'll take your deal. He rounded on Ingmar. Lying to me, Ingmar? Drunk on your ale again? He lifted the steward by the collar, staring into his eye. Think I don't know this man? His face was plastered across Velgard's papers for a month. You'd hire a hero slayer as an exorcist. That'll ruin us with other heroes. It's a matter of state pride. His face reddened, then calmed. But you're right. No heroes here, nor their killers. He released Ingmar. Ready to work for your own gain, Cade? My lord, Cade said with a slight nod. Is it true all Calderans are dark-haired and bronze-skinned? Varric asked abruptly. Sun's work, my lord, Cade replied. Some are pale as snow, with red eyes like wine. Stunners, all of them. How many beasts have you slain, Meister? Varric loomed closer. They say your eyes see magic. True? I need a master, not monster bait. Answer, or I'll string up your friend Ingmar. Can you handle this, Calderan? Yes, Cade said simply. Werewolves, doppelgangers, Varric pressed. Dealt with them. Skandir, trolls, ghouls. Fought them in the border wars for Port Haven, Cade replied. How many have you saved? Varric's eyes narrowed. Killing's easier, Cade said. But for coin, I'll risk it. Magic's versatile, not omnipotent. I'll help, for a price. Your blood, your problem, my lord. Hero or beast, all bleed the same. Varric roared with laughter. Well said. My father thought himself immortal. And where's he now? I live for today. What do you make of Velgard's rise, hunter? Are their lords fit to rule, or do they mask weakness with strength? We're all scraps of the empire, clawing for power. Even you, chasing coin. Who's right? Empires rise and fall, Cade said. We lost our greatness when we let outsiders dilute us. Their ways reshaped us. Kaldor's no different, decay everywhere. We only unite against threats, not in peace. Monsters and ghouls creep in while we bicker. I've burned their lairs, cursed their lands, but they rebuild. Velgard's wave will hit Dunport soon. Good words, Varric mused. But Velgard's 7 cities threaten us all. Since the Hun dynasty fell, trades crumbled. Cities rot, folks scatter, and beasts feast. You didn't see it, safe in Kaldur's sun. Here, it's ice and snow, with summer once a century. Velgard controls the old Han trade routes through Lord Griff. If someone gutted that vulture, the honest folk of the coast would pay 10,000 gold to the hero who did it. He eyed Cade meaningfully. I'm no assassin, Cade said firmly. Hunter, enforcer, yes, but not a killer for hire. My name's earned in blood, not bard songs. Varric nodded thoughtfully. Fair. Consider my offer, though. Such coin doesn't grow on trees. The coast needs men like you. I'll hire you for the Skandir. Settle the price with Ingmar. Giles, with me. He stormed out, the jester bowing theatrically before following. Another ale, Caldoran? Ingmar grinned, relieved. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Basilica. Cade stepped into the misty streets of Dunport, the weight of Ingmar's deal and Lord Varric's veiled threats heavy on his mind. The night air was thick with the scent of salt and smoked fish, and the distant crash of waves against Flea Harbor's docks echoed through the alleys. His pack rhino, stabled at the rusty anchor, snorted in the distance, as if sensing his unease. Cade adjusted his leather jacket, checking the straps of his crossbow and the pouches of potions and crystals at his waist. The Shadow Basilica awaited, a defiled temple where Varric's twin siblings, possessed by a Skandir demon, were sealed away. Ingmar had slipped him a crude map etched on weathered parchment, marking the basilica's entrance beneath the city's catacombs. Mind the traps, the steward had warned, his single eye glinting with grim amusement. And don't trust the shadows, they move. Cade had nodded, pocketing the map and a small advance of gold, enough to cover a hot meal and a fresh cloak if he survived. The cobblestone path led him past shuttered merchant stalls and flickering lanterns, their light barely piercing the fog. Dunport's nightlife was subdued tonight, the usual clamor of sailors and courtesans replaced by an eerie quiet. Whispers of the doppelganger and werewolves prowling the docks had kept most folk indoors. Cade didn't mind. Fewer eyes meant fewer interruptions. He reached the catacombs' entrance, a rusted iron grate hidden behind a crumbling fountain in the city's old quarter. Kneeling, he traced the grate's edges, finding the concealed lever Ingmar had mentioned. With a groan, the grate swung open, revealing a stone staircase descending into darkness. Cade lit a small crystal from his vest, its faint blue glow illuminating slick walls carved with faded runes. The air grew colder, heavy with the stench of decay and something sharper, arcane residue. At the base of the stairs, the passage widened into a cavernous chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. Broken statues of forgotten saints lined the walls, their faces eroded into featureless masks. Cade's boots crunched on shattered tiles as he moved deeper, his senses sharp. The map indicated a sealed door to the basilica, guarded by wards and traps. He scanned the floor, spotting faint glyphs etched into the stone. Arcane triggers, likely to summon guardians or worse. "Sloppy work," Cade muttered, kneeling to disarm the first glyph. He drew a silver needle from his pouch and pricked his finger, letting a drop of blood fall onto the rune. It hissed, then faded, its magic neutralized. Old tricks for old tombs. He moved to the next, repeating the process, his movements precise despite the growing chill. A low hum vibrated through the chamber, and the shadows shifted, coiling like smoke. Cade froze, hand on his crossbow. Ingmar's warning echoed in his mind. The shadows parted, revealing a figure, a spectral warrior in tattered armor, its eyes glowing like twin embers. A guardian wraith, bound to the catacombs. "Who dares disturb the sanctity of the basilica?" the wraith hissed, its voice a rasp of wind and malice. It raised a translucent blade, its edges crackling with dark energy. "Cade of Calder," he replied, loading a bolt tipped with blessed iron. "Just passing through. Step aside or I'll send you back to whatever hell spawned you." The wraith lunged, its blade slicing the air. Cade rolled aside, firing the bolt. It struck the wraith's chest, and the creature shrieked, its form flickering as the iron burned through its essence. Two more shadows emerged, their forms less defined, but no less deadly. Cade drew his black steel longsword, its runes flaring as he whispered an incantation. The blade hummed, cutting through the second wraith's arm, dissipating it in a burst of ash. The third wraith was faster, its claws raking Cade's shoulder, tearing through his jacket. Pain flared, but he gritted his teeth, slamming a crystal into the ground. It shattered, releasing a pulse of light that banished the wraith in a howl of agony. Panting, Cade pressed a hand to his wound, applying a salve from his pouch. The bleeding slowed, but the pain lingered, a reminder to stay sharp. He reached the sealed door, a massive slab of obsidian carved with writhing serpents. The map marked it as the basilica's threshold, bound by a blood ward. Cade hesitated. Blood wards were tricky. Too much, and they'd drain him dry. Too little, and they'd trigger alarms. He pricked his palm, letting blood pool, and pressed it to the door's center. The serpents glowed, then parted, and the door rumbled open, revealing a spiraling staircase descending further. The shadow basilica loomed below, its spires visible through gaps in the stone. Flickering torchlight cast long shadows, and the air thrummed with arcane energy. Cade descended, his crossbow ready. At the bottom, he entered a vast hall, its walls adorned with tapestries depicting Dunport's fall from imperial glory. In the center stood an altar, cracked and stained, surrounded by a circle of glowing runes. Two figures knelt within, Varric's twins, their eyes glowing an unnatural green, their bodies trembling as if fighting an unseen force. "You're not welcome here, Hunter," a voice boomed, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. The Skandir. Its presence was palpable, a weight pressing against Cade's mind. "These vessels are mine. Leave or join them." Cade smirked, loading a bolt tipped with a rare void shard. "I've heard worse threats from tavern drunks. Let's make this quick." He fired, aiming for the altar's center, where the Skandir's energy seemed strongest. The bolt struck, and the runes flared, then dimmed. The twins gasped, collapsing, their eyes flickering between green and human. The air twisted, and the Skandir manifested. A towering figure of shadow and flame, its form shifting between warrior and beast. "Fool," it snarled, "you cannot banish me. I am eternal." Cade drew his longsword, its runes blazing. "Eternal's a long time. Let's see how you handle steel." He charged, slashing through the Skandir's form, each strike dispersing its essence. The twins screamed, their bodies convulsing, as the demon fought to maintain its hold. Cade tossed a crystal, this one etched with binding runes, and struck it with his blade. It exploded in a web of light, ensnaring the Skandir. "Now," Cade shouted, hoping the twins could hear him. "Fight it! Push it out!" He didn't know if they could, but he needed time. The Skandir roared, its form solidifying, claws slashing. Cade ducked, rolling behind the altar, and drew a vial of consecrated oil. He smashed it against the demon, chanting an old Calderon exorcism. The Skandir shrieked, its form unraveling, but it lashed out, knocking Cade against a pillar. His vision blurred, but he staggered to his feet, gripping his sword. One twin, a girl with Varric's broad features, stumbled forward, her eyes clearing. "Help us," she gasped. "It's too strong." Cade nodded, slicing his palm and pressing it to her forehead, then her brother's. The blood ritual burned, drawing on his own strength to weaken the Skandir's hold. The demon howled, its form collapsing into a vortex of shadow. Cade drove his sword into the vortex's heart, channeling every ounce of his arcane training. The hall shook, tapestries falling, as the Skandir's essence shattered, leaving only silence. The twins slumped, unconscious but alive, their eyes human again. Cade exhaled, wiping sweat and blood from his brow. He bound their wrists with warded cords, just in case, and hoisted them over his shoulders. The basilica groaned, as if mourning the demon's departure. Cade didn't linger. The catacombs were no place to rest. He emerged into Dunport's dawn, the twins in tow, and headed for Varric's fortress. The guards at the gate gaped, but let him pass, recognizing the governor's kin. Ingmar met him in the courtyard, his single eye wide with disbelief. "You're alive," Ingmar said, almost accusingly. "And the twins?" "Freed," Cade replied, setting them down gently. "Skandir's gone. Pay up." Ingmar grinned, clapping Cade's shoulder. 5,000, as promised. Varric'll want to see them. You're a mad bastard, Meister." He paused, eyeing Cade's torn jacket and bloodied shoulder. "Need a healer? Or more ale?" "Ale," Cade said, his smirk faint but genuine. "And a new jacket." Chapter 5. Whispers of the Coast. Cade sat in the rusty anchor's back room, nursing a tankard of Dunport's finest cider, its crisp bite soothing his battered body. His shoulder, bandaged by a local healer, throbbed dully, but the 5,000 gold coins, delivered in a heavy chest by Ingmar's men, made the pain bearable. The twins, Varric's siblings, were recovering in the governor's fortress, guarded by priests of Ingvar to ensure no trace of the Skandir lingered. Cade had done his job, but Dunport's air felt heavier now, as if the city itself watched him. Ingmar slid into the seat opposite, his single eye gleaming with mischief. He plunked down a fresh bottle of ginger ale and a plate of smoked cod, the aroma cutting through the tavern's usual stench of ale and sweat. "You look like you've wrestled a sea serpent, Maester," he said, grinning. "But you're the talk of the coast now. Cade of Caldor, banisher of demons. Bards are already spinning songs." Cade snorted, spearing a piece of cod. "Bards lie worse than lords. I don't need songs, just coin." Varric paid up, so I'm square. "What's next? Or am I free to leave this fog-soaked rock?" Ingmar's grin faded slightly, his fingers tracing the bottle's rim. Not so fast. Varric's pleased, but he's got another job. And there's trouble brewing. Your name's Drawn Eyes. Maxim's merchant friends from the Radiant Church are in Port Haven, sniffing around. They're calling you a heretic, saying you're hunting heroes for some dark pact. Velgard's papers are printing it too. He leaned closer, voice dropping. You've made enemies, Cade. Big ones, don't forget. Cade's grip tightened on his tankard, but his face stayed calm. Let them come. I've danced with paladins before. Maxim was a fool. They'll learn the same lesson. He sipped his cider, eyes narrowing. What's Varric's job? I'm not his errand boy, Ingmar. Make it worth my while. Ingmar chuckled, leaning back. Fair enough. It's not Varric's usual grunt work. There's a doppelganger loose, same one the innkeeper mentioned. It's been preying on Dunport's elite, impersonating merchants, even a counselor. Last week, it seduced a shipwright's wife, left her mad and muttering about green eyes. It's raising ghouls too, hiding them in the sewers. Varric wants it dead. 2,000 gold for its head, but there's a catch. There always is, Cade muttered. Spit it out. It's holed up in the old Han ruins, north of the docks, Ingmar said. Place is cursed, leftover wards from the Empire's fall. Traps, spirits, maybe worse. And the doppelgangers got hired blades, mercenaries from Velgard, tough as iron. You'd need to move fast before it slips away, or Varric loses patience and hires some half-wit mage who'll botch it. He paused, eyeing Cade. Interested? Or are you planning to sail off with your gold? Cade chewed his cod, considering. The Han ruins were infamous, even in Caldor. Crumbling temples and vaults where the old Empire's sorcerers wove spells to rival gods. A doppelganger there, with mercenaries and ghouls, was no small task. But 2,000 gold was good coin, and he needed to stay ahead of the Radiant Church's hounds. Besides, he hated doppelgangers, shape-shifting vermin that twisted trust into betrayal. I'll do it, Cade said finally, draining his cider. But I want 3,000, and a map of the ruins, if you've got one. No more surprises like the Basilica's wraiths. Ingmar laughed, slapping the table. You drive a hard bargain, Meister. 2,500, and I'll throw in a map and a fresh crate of my ale. Deal? He extended a hand, his eye twinkling. Cade shook it, his grip firm. Deal. Get me the map by dawn. I move tomorrow night. Full moon'll help spot the ghouls. He stood, tossing a coin for the meal. And keep Varric's jester away from me. That hunchback gives me the creeps. Ingmar smirked, pocketing the coin. Giles is harmless, mostly. Watch your back, Cade. Dunport's got more shadows than the Basilica. Cade stepped into the night, the fog thicker now, cloaking Dunport's alleys in a ghostly shroud. His pack rhino snorted as he passed the stable, its bulk reassuring in the eerie quiet. He checked his gear. Crossbow bolts, potions, crystals, and his black steel longsword, its runes dormant but ready. The Han ruins would test him, but he'd faced worse. Or so he told himself. The next evening, Cade stood at the ruin's edge, a sprawling maze of crumbled stone and twisted iron overlooking the crashing sea. Ingmar's map, though crude, marked key areas. A central vault where the doppelganger likely hid, and side passages rigged with traps. The full moon cast a silver glow, revealing shambling shapes in the distance, ghouls, their eyes glinting like wet coins. Cade crouched behind a fallen pillar, loading his crossbow with silver-tipped bolts. The mercenaries were the real threat. Ghouls were slow, predictable. He spotted 2 armored figures patrolling a broken archway, their Velgard steel glinting. Cade fired, the bolt striking one in the neck. The man dropped silently, but his partner shouted, drawing a long sword. Cade rolled into the open, firing again. The second mercenary deflected the bolt with his blade, charging with a roar. Cade drew his sword, parrying a heavy strike, the runes flaring as steel met steel. The mercenary was skilled, but Cade was faster, feinting low and slashing the man's thigh. As the mercenary stumbled, Cade drove his blade through his chest, ending the fight. The ghouls, alerted by the noise, shambled closer, their claws scraping stone. Cade tossed a crystal, its explosion of light incinerating three, their screams echoing. He pressed deeper, following the map to the vault. The air grew heavy, laced with the doppelganger's arcane stench, sickly sweet, like rotting flowers. Inside the vault, a figure stood amidst piles of stolen gold and bones. It wore the face of Lord Varric, but its eyes glowed green, and its smile was too wide, too sharp. "Hunter," it purred, its voice a mockery of Varric's. "You're persistent. Pity you'll die here." Cade raised his crossbow, unfazed. "Nice trick, but I've seen better. Drop the face or I'll carve it off." He fired, but the doppelganger shifted, its form blurring into a merchant's, then a woman's, dodging the bolt. It laughed, summoning ghouls from the shadows. Cade fought methodically, cutting down ghouls while keeping the doppelganger in sight. It taunted him, shifting faces. Ingmar, the priestess from the tavern, even Cade himself. "You're no hero," it hissed, lunging with claw-toed hands. "Just a killer, like me." Cade parried, driving a dagger into its side. The doppelganger screamed, its form stabilizing into a pale, humanoid creature with too many teeth. He smashed a vial of consecrated oil, burning its flesh, then fired a void-shard bolt into its chest. The creature collapsed, its body dissolving into ash, leaving only a green gem pulsing with residual magic. Cade pocketed the gem, wary of its power, and collected the doppelganger's head, or what passed for it. The ruins grew silent, the ghouls crumbling without their master. Exhausted, he trudged back to Dunport, the head in a sack, his wounds aching but his resolve firm. At the fortress, Varric inspected the head, his scarred face unreadable. "Well done, Meister," he rumbled, tossing Cade a chest of 2,500 gold. "You're worth the coin. Stay in Dunport. We could use you." Cade shook his head. "I'm no man's dog, my lord. I'll take my gold and go." He turned to leave, but Varric's voice stopped him. "The Radiant Church won't forget you," Varric warned. "Nor will Velgard. Watch the seas, Hunter." Cade smirked, stepping into the dawn. "Let them come." Chapter 6. The Tide of Vengeance. Cade trudged through Dunport's fog-choked streets, the weight of the doppelganger's gem in his pouch as heavy as the gold chest slung over his shoulder. The dawn sky was a bruised purple, the air sharp with the promise of autumn's bite. His pack rhino, waiting at the rusty anchor's stable, snorted as he approached, its horned snout nudging him for a scrap of bread. Cade obliged, patting the beast's flank, but his eyes scanned the shadows. Varric's warning about the Radiant Church and Velgard lingered like a storm on the horizon. Inside the tavern, the usual crowd of sailors and rogues was thin, their whispers hushed as Cade entered. His name was no longer just a rumor. It was a spark, igniting fear and awe. He dropped the chest by the bar, signaling the innkeeper for a cider. The grizzled man, his beard still flecked with last night's grease, slid a tankard over with a wary nod. "You're a walking curse, Meister," the innkeeper muttered, wiping his hands on his apron. "Word spread. Maxim's kin are in Port Haven, and they've got coin and swords. They're calling you a demon, saying you've got no right to hunt heroes, and that doppelganger's head. Folks say it screamed when you cut it. True?" Cade smirked, sipping his cider. "It squealed a bit. Nothing new. Let Maxim's kin come. I'll send them to join him." He leaned closer, voice low. "Heard anything else? Velgard's dogs, maybe? Or more beasts in the shadows?" The innkeeper hesitated, glancing at the door. "Aye, something's stirring. A ship docked last night, flying Velgard's colors, black and gold, with a griffin crest. Not merchants, mind you. Knights, maybe enforcers. They're asking about a Caldoran with a crossbow, and there's talk of a werewolf pack moving south from the cliffs. Bigger than the dock stragglers. Alpha's a brute, they say, twice the size of a man. Cade's fingers drummed his sword hilt. Velgard's enforcers were no paladins, but they were trouble. Trained killers with imperial steel and no qualms about collateral damage. The werewolves, though, piqued his interest. A pack meant a leader, and a leader meant a bounty. "Where's this pack holed up?" he asked. "Cliff caves, north of the Han ruins," the innkeeper replied. "No one's gone near. Last fool who tried came back in pieces. You hunting them too, or you skipping town before Velgard's hounds sniff you out?" Cade didn't answer, finishing his cider. He needed to move, but not blindly. Velgard's enforcers were a problem, but werewolves were coin. He'd deal with the pack first, then decide whether to face the knights or slip away on a ship to Caldor. Ingmar's map of the ruins had been useful. Maybe the steward had one for the cliffs. He found Ingmar in the fortress's lower halls, hunched over a desk cluttered with scrolls and empty ale bottles. The steward looked up, his single eye brightening. "Back already, Meister. I heard you turned the ruins to ash. That doppelganger's gem. Keep it close. It's got power, but it's cursed. What's your next play?" Cade dropped into a chair, tossing the green gem onto the desk. It pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows. "Werewolves," he said. "North Cliffs. Big pack, big alpha. You got a map? And what's this about Velgard's knights? They're here for me, aren't they?" Ingmar's smirk faded. He pushed a rolled parchment across the desk, a map of the cliff caves, marked with old smuggler routes. "You're a magnet for trouble, Cade." "Aye, Velgard's sent enforcers. 3 knights, maybe more, with a mage in tow. They're at the Gilded Anchor, asking about you. Radiant Church is funding them, calling you a heretic. They want your head, or at least your token." He tapped the grey token at Cade's belt, its emerald runes glinting. "Lose that, and you're just a rogue with a sword." Cade pocketed the gem, studying the map. The caves were a maze, perfect for ambushes. "I'll handle the wolves first. 3,000 for the Alpha's head, and I want passage on a ship after. No questions asked." Ingmar raised an eyebrow but nodded. 2,500, and I'll get you a berth on a Caldor-bound ship. Varric's orders. Keep you alive, but don't cross Velgard openly. Deal?" "Deal," Cade said, memorizing the map's key paths. "Keep those knights off my back till I'm done." That night, Cade trekked north, the moon high and full, casting the cliffs in stark relief. The caves loomed, their mouths jagged like broken teeth. Howls echoed, low and guttural, sending a chill through even his battle-hardened nerves. He loaded his crossbow with silver bolts, their tips etched with banishing runes, and crept forward. The first werewolf lunged from a side passage, its fur matted with blood, eyes glowing amber. Cade fired, the bolt piercing its heart. It collapsed, twitching as 2 more charged. He drew his longsword, runes flaring, and slashed through the first, its howl cut short. The second raked his arm, but Cade drove a dagger into its throat, silver burning its flesh. Deeper in, the Alpha waited, a hulking beast, its fur black as pitch, standing upright like a man but twice as broad. Its claws gleamed, and its eyes held a cruel intelligence. "Hunter," it growled, voice like grinding stone. "You stink of hero's blood. You'll die here." Cade grinned, tossing a crystal that exploded in blinding light. The Alpha roared, staggering, and Cade fired a bolt into its shoulder. It barely flinched, charging with terrifying speed. He dodged, slashing its flank, but the beast's claw caught his chest, tearing through leather. Pain seared, but Cade rolled, smashing a vial of consecrated oil. The Alpha howled, its fur smoking, and Cade drove his sword into its chest, twisting until it stilled. Panting, he severed the Alpha's head, its weight heavy in his sack. The caves grew quiet, the pack's remnants fleeing. Cade bound his wounds, his vision swimming, and staggered back to Dunport, the head and gem his only trophies. At the fortress, Ingmar gaped at the Alpha's head, its jaws still dripping. "You're a madman, Meister," he said, counting out 2,500 gold. "Ship leaves at dawn. Captain's name is Torin, berths secured, but the knights are close. They hit the docks last night, killed a guard who mentioned you. Get out before they corner you." Cade nodded, pocketing the gold. "Tell Varric he owes me for the next one." He turned to leave, but Ingmar grabbed his arm. "That gem," Ingmar said, voice low. "It's tied to the Scandir. Don't keep it. It'll draw more demons. Burn it, or you'll regret it." Cade smirked, slipping the gem into his pouch. "I've handled worse." He stepped into the pre-dawn mist, the ship waiting, but as he reached the docks, a figure in black and gold armor blocked his path, a longsword gleaming under the moonlight. "Cade of Calder," the knight said, voice cold. "The Radiant Church demands your token and your life." Cade drew his crossbow, his smirk unwavering. "Come and take it." Chapter 7. Blades at Dawn. The docks of Flea Harbor glistened under the pre-dawn mist, the air thick with salt and the creak of moored ships. Cade faced the Velgard knight, his crossbow steady, the silver-tipped bolt gleaming in the moonlight. The knight's black and gold armor bore the griffin crest of Velgard's elite enforcers, and his longsword hummed with faint enchantments. Behind him, two more figures emerged from the fog, another knight and a cloaked mage, her staff glowing with arcane runes. Cade's smirk didn't waver, but his mind raced. 3 against 1, and a ship to Caldor waiting just beyond. He needed to end this fast. "Cade of Caldor," the lead knight repeated, his voice like iron. "Surrender your token and face the Radiant Church's justice. You've slain their chosen. Maxim was no rogue. You're a heretic, and Velgard doesn't suffer your kind." Cade's eyes flicked to the mage, her staff pulsing dangerously. "Maxim was a zealot who enslaved minds," he said, voice calm but edged. "I'm no heretic, just a hunter cleaning up your mess. Step aside, or you'll join him." The knight sneered, raising his sword. "Bold words for a dead man. Take him!" The mage acted first, thrusting her staff forward. A wave of blue fire surged toward Cade, scorching the dock's planks. He dove behind a stack of crates, the heat singeing his cloak. Rolling to his feet, he fired a bolt at the mage, but she deflected it with a shimmering ward. The second knight charged, his axe swinging for Cade's head. Cade parried with his black steel longsword, its runes flaring as they clashed, sparks flying. "You're quick," the knight grunted, pressing his attack. "But not quick enough." Cade ducked a swing, slashing the knight's leg. The man staggered, and Cade smashed a crystal at his feet, releasing a cloud of paralyzing mist. The knight collapsed, gasping, as Cade spun to face the lead knight, who was closing fast. Their swords met, steel singing, but the knight's strength was brutal, forcing Cade back toward the water's edge. The mage chanted, her staff glowing brighter. Cade tossed a void shard crystal, striking it mid-air with a thrown dagger. It exploded, disrupting her spell, and she stumbled, clutching her head. Seizing the moment, Cade drove his shoulder into the lead knight, knocking him into a pile of ropes. He fired a bolt into the knight's arm, pinning it to the dock. The man roared, struggling to rise. "Last chance," Cade said, sword at the knight's throat. "Walk away, or I send your head to Velgard." The knight spat, blood flecking his lips. "You'll burn for this, heretic. The church sees all." Cade's blade flashed, silencing him. The mage, recovering, screamed and unleashed a bolt of lightning. Cade rolled, the blast charring the ground, and threw a binding crystal. It shattered, wrapping her in glowing chains. She thrashed, cursing in a tongue Cade didn't know, but the chains held. The second knight, still paralyzed, groaned as Cade bound him with warded cords. Panting, Cade wiped blood from a cut on his cheek. The dock was a mess. Burned planks, scattered ropes, and 3 downed foes. He collected their weapons, tossing them into the sea, and searched the lead knight's body. A sealed letter bore the Radiant Church's sunburst sigil, addressed to Lord Griff of Velgard. Cade pocketed it, along with the mage's staff, its runes still faintly glowing. He'd need to study it later. The ship to Caldor, the Sea Serpent, loomed at the pier's end, its captain, Torin, watching from the deck. "Trouble follows you, Hunter," Torin called, his grizzled face unreadable. "Got my coin?" Cade tossed a pouch of gold, keeping his crossbow ready. "Get me to Caldor, and there's more. No stops, no questions." Torin nodded, waving him aboard. "Hurry, dawn's breaking, and Velgard's got more ships." Cade boarded, his pack rhino lumbering behind, its bulk shaking the gangplank. As the ship cast off, he stood at the rail, watching Dunport fade into the mist. The green gem in his pouch pulsed faintly, a reminder of Ingmar's warning. He ignored it, opening the church's letter instead. It detailed his crimes: Maxim's death, the Basilica exorcism, the doppelganger's demise, and offered a bounty, 10,000 gold for his head, dead or alive. Lord Griff himself had signed it. "Charming," Cade muttered, tucking the letter away. Velgard's reach was long, and the Radiant Church's longer. Caldor might not be the sanctuary he'd hoped. Torin approached, offering a flask of rum. "You look like you need this, Meister. What's in Caldor? Family? A woman? Or just more blood?" Cade took a swig, the rum burning his throat. "Home. And answers. The church wants me dead, but I want to know why. Maxim wasn't just a paladin. He was connected. I need to find out who's pulling their strings." Torin grunted, eyeing the horizon. "Caldor's a week's sail, if the winds hold. But Velgard's ships patrol these waters. You sure you're worth this trouble?" Cade smirked, patting his sword. "I'm worth every coin. Keep your crew sharp, Captain. I'll handle the rest." Below deck, Cade checked his gear, the gem's pulse stronger now, almost rhythmic. He wrapped it in a warded cloth, muffling its energy, but Ingmar's words gnawed at him. "It's tied to the Scandir." He'd faced demons before, but this gem felt different, alive, watching. He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the letter. Griff's name meant power, and power meant secrets. Caldor's archives, hidden in the city's ancient guilds, might hold clues. A shout from above broke his thoughts. "Sails! Black and gold!" Cade rushed topside, crossbow in hand. A Velgard ship, smaller but faster, cut through the waves, its griffin banner snapping in the wind. Archers lined its deck, and a robed figure, another mage, stood at the prow. "Ready your men," Cade told Torin, loading a void shard bolt. "This isn't a parley." The enemy ship closed, arrows raining down. Cade fired, his bolt striking the mage's shoulder. The robed figure fell, but the ship kept coming, grappling hooks flying. Cade slashed the ropes, but 2 enforcers boarded, their swords drawn. He fought back-to-back with Torin's crew, his blade carving through armor, runes blazing. The deck ran red, but the Velgard ship withdrew, its mage wounded and its crew battered. Cade leaned against the rail, breathing hard. "They'll be back," he said, wiping blood from his sword. "Faster next time." Torin spat into the sea. "You're bad luck, Hunter, but you fight like a demon. Keep that blade ready." As the sea serpent sailed on, Cade stood watch, the gem's pulse a faint echo in his pouch. Caldor awaited, but so did the church's wrath, and something darker, stirring in the shadows of his past. Chapter 8. Shadows on the sea. The sea serpent cut through the churning waves, its sails taut under a restless wind. Cade stood at the stern, his cloak snapping in the breeze, eyes fixed on the horizon where Velgard's ship had vanished. The encounter at dawn had been a warning, a taste of the Radiant Church's resolve. The green gem in his pouch pulsed faintly, its rhythm like a heartbeat, and Cade's fingers twitched toward his sword. He didn't trust it, but destroying it at sea risked unknown consequences. Caldor's archives would have answers, or so he hoped. Captain Torin joined him, his weathered face grim. "Crew's spooked, Meister. That Velgard ship'll be back, and they've got mages. My men are sailors, not warriors. You sure you're worth this?" He offered a flask of rum, its burn a welcome distraction. Cade took a swig, handing it back. "I paid you enough to make it worth your while. Keep sailing. Caldor's my problem, not yours." He glanced at the deck, where his pack rhino dozed, its bulk a comforting presence. "Any word from your lookout? More sails?" Torin shook his head. "Clear for now, but these waters are Velgard's playground. Their patrols run from Port Haven to the southern dunes. If they want you, they'll find us." He paused, eyeing Cade's pouch. "That gem you're carrying, it's trouble, ain't it? I've seen cursed trinkets before. Smugglers lost whole crews to things like that." Cade's jaw tightened. "It's contained. Focus on the ship, Captain." He turned away, but Torin's words lingered. The gem's pulse had grown stronger since Dunport, and at night he swore he heard whispers, fragments of words in a tongue older than the Empire. He'd faced Scandir before. But this felt different, personal. Below deck, Cade spread the Church's letter on a crate, its parchment creased but intact. Lord Griff's signature was bold, the words accusing him of heresy, murder, and destabilizing Velgard's trade routes. The bounty, 10,000 gold, would draw every mercenary from here to the Northern Isles. But it was the final line that chilled him. "His power threatens the Creator's order. Seize the gem at all costs." They knew about it. How? A crewman's shout broke his thoughts. "Sails! 3 ships, black and gold!" Cade bolted topside, crossbow in hand. The horizon was alive with Velgard's griffin banners, their ships closing like wolves on a wounded stag. Torin cursed, barking orders to his crew as the sea serpent veered starboard, seeking speed. "They're fast," Torin growled, gripping the helm. "We can't outrun them. Fight or swim, Hunter." Cade loaded a void shard bolt, scanning the lead ship. 2 mages stood at its prow, their staffs glowing with arcane fire. "Get your men below," he said. "I'll handle the welcome." Torin hesitated but nodded, shouting for the crew to take cover. The first ship fired a volley of arrows, some tipped with glowing runes. Cade ducked behind the mast, the projectiles thudding into wood. He returned fire, his bolt striking a mage's chest. The figure collapsed, but the second mage unleashed a torrent of ice, frosting the deck. Cade slid, nearly losing his footing, and tossed a crystal that exploded in a wave of heat, melting the ice and forcing the mage to shield herself. Grappling hooks clattered onto the sea serpent's rail. Cade slashed them free, but 4 enforcers boarded, their Velgard steel gleaming. He fought with ruthless precision, his longsword's runes flaring as he cut down 2. The third landed a blow, his mace grazing Cade's ribs, but Cade countered with a dagger to the man's throat. The 4th enforcer hesitated, then fled, leaping back to his ship. The gem pulsed violently, and a voice, clear now, echoed in Cade's mind. "Release me, Hunter. I can save you." He ignored it, firing another bolt at the mage. It missed, and she retaliated with a bolt of lightning that scorched his arm. Gritting his teeth, Cade drew a warded crystal, chanting a Caldoran binding spell. The crystal shattered, ensnaring the mage in glowing chains, but the second ship was closing, its deck bristling with archers. Torin reappeared, wielding a cutlass. "You're bleeding, Meister. We're done if you don't end this." He hacked at a rope as another hook caught the rail. Cade nodded, pulling the green gem from his pouch. Its pulse was frantic, its whispers urgent. "Use me. Power for blood." Against his better judgment, he crushed it in his fist, blood dripping from his palm. A surge of energy flooded him, his vision sharpening, strength coursing through his limbs. Shadows coiled around his blade, and he charged the remaining enforcers, cutting them down with unnatural speed. The second ship's mage faltered, sensing the gem's power. Cade fired a bolt, this one infused with the gem's dark energy. It pierced her ward, dropping her instantly. The Velgard ships broke off, retreating into the fog, their crews shaken. Cade collapsed to his knees, the gem's fragments crumbling to dust. Its voice was gone, but his body felt wrong, too heavy, too cold. Torin stared, wide-eyed. "What in Ingvar's name was that? You're no mage, Hunter." Cade stood, shaking off the unease. "Just a trick. Keep sailing." He didn't mention the gem's whispers or the chill in his bones. The crew watched him warily, but Torin barked them back to work. That night, below deck, Cade studied his wounds. The lightning burn was minor, but his blood felt sluggish, as if the gem's power lingered. He opened the church's letter again, rereading Griff's words. The gem was no accident. It was tied to the Skandir, to Maxim, to the church's crusade. Kaldor's archives might hold records of such artifacts, but he'd need to survive the journey first. A crewman knocked, his face pale. "Captain says land's in sight, Kaldor's dunes. But there's a storm brewing and something's in the water. Shapes, big ones." Cade grabbed his crossbow, climbing topside. The sea churned, dark shapes moving beneath the waves, serpents or worse. The gem's destruction had awakened something, and Velgard's ships were still out there, waiting. He gripped his sword, its runes flickering weakly. "Ready the crew," he told Torin. "This isn't over." Chapter 9. Serpents of the Deep. The sea. Serpent groaned under the weight of an approaching storm, its timbers creaking as black clouds swallowed the stars. Cade stood at the prow, his crossbow braced against the rail, eyes straining to pierce the roiling sea. The shapes beneath the waves, sinuous, massive, and far too fast for mere fish, circled closer, their scales glinting like oil under lightning flashes. The destruction of the Skandir gem had unleashed something ancient, and Cade's blood still felt heavy, tainted by its fleeting power. His pack rhino snorted below deck, sensing the danger, while Captain Torin's crew scrambled to secure sails and ready harpoons. Torin joined Cade, his cutlass drawn, face grim under his salt-crusted beard. "Those ain't sharks, Meister. Sea serpents may be worse. Never seen 'em this bold." "You sure that gem's gone? Feels like you kicked a hornet's nest." He gripped the helm, steering through swelling waves. Cade loaded a silver-tipped bolt, its runes glowing faintly. "It's dust now, but it left a mark. Keep the ship steady. I'll deal with whatever's down there." He didn't mention the chill in his veins or the faint whispers that lingered at the edge of his mind, remnants of the gem's voice. A crewman shouted, pointing starboard. A serpentine head breached the surface, its eyes glowing amber, jaws lined with needle-like teeth. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a kettle, and lunged at the ship. Cade fired, the bolt striking its eye. The beast shrieked, thrashing, but another emerged portside, its tail slamming the hull. Wood splintered, and the crew screamed as water sprayed the deck. "Harpoons!" Torin roared, hacking at a coil that snaked over the rail. The crew rallied, driving iron-tipped spears into the second serpent, but it barely slowed, its scales deflecting most blows. Cade tossed a crystal, its explosion of light searing the creature's flank. It recoiled, diving below, but the first serpent struck again, its jaws snapping inches from Cade's leg. He drew his black steel longsword, runes flaring, and slashed its snout, drawing dark blood. "Stay back," he shouted to Torin, leaping onto a crate for leverage. The serpent lunged, and Cade drove his blade into its mouth, twisting until it spasmed and sank, trailing Icor. The crew cheered, but Cade's eyes were on the sea. More shapes circled, drawn by the blood. "We can't fight 'em all," Torin panted, blood streaming from a gash on his arm. "Caldor's dunes are close, but this storm'll tear us apart first. Got any more tricks, Hunter?" Cade's mind raced. The gem's power had summoned these beasts, likely tied to the Scandir's ancient pacts. He pulled a warded vial from his pouch, consecrated oil mixed with void shard dust, a last resort. "Get to shallow waters," he said, uncorking the vial. "I'll buy us time." Torin nodded, shouting orders as the ship veered toward Caldor's coast, visible now as a faint line of golden dunes under the storm's edge. Cade climbed the mast, vial in hand, and chanted a Caldoran exorcism, his voice barely audible over the wind. The oil glowed, its energy pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He hurled it into the sea where the serpents converged. The water erupted in a blinding flash, waves surging as the oil burned through arcane tethers. The serpents shrieked, their forms unraveling into shadow and foam, banished by the void shard's power. The sea calmed, but the storm raged on, lightning cracking the sky. Cade slid down the mast, soaked and exhausted, his sword still drawn. Torin clapped his shoulder, grinning despite the chaos. "You're a mad bastard, Meister. Saved my ship, maybe my crew. Caldor's yours now, but I'm not sailing back through that." He pointed to the dunes, growing clearer. "What's waiting for you there? More monsters?" Cade sheathed his sword, wiping rain from his face. "Answers. The Radiant Church wants me dead, and I need to know why. Caldor's got secrets, old guilds, older archives. If I'm lucky, I'll find what they're hiding." Torin raised an eyebrow. "And if you're not?" Cade smirked, patting his crossbow. "Then I hunt." The sea serpent limped into Caldor's harbor as dawn broke, the storm easing into a drizzle. The city sprawled across the dunes, its sun-bleached spires and mud-brick walls a stark contrast to Dunport's grey stone. Merchants hawked spices and silks along the docks, their voices mingling with the cries of gulls. Cade's pack rhino lumbered ashore, drawing stares, but he ignored them, his eyes scanning for Velgard's black and gold banners. None yet, but they'd come. Torin offered a final flask of rum. "You paid fair, Hunter. If you need a ship again, find me in Port Haven. Stay alive." He turned back to his crew, barking orders to repair the hull. Cade nodded, shouldering his gold chest and gear. "Fair winds, Captain." He led his rhino into the city, the heat of Caldor's sun a familiar weight. The archives were housed in the Guild of Sages, a fortress-like structure in the city's heart, guarded by wards and mercenaries. Getting in would be tricky, but he had contacts, old friends, older debts. At a spice market he found Zara, a former guild enforcer turned smuggler, her bronze skin and dark braid unchanged since their last job. She leaned against a stall, chewing a date, her dagger glinting at her hip. "Cade," she said, smirking. "Heard you were dead. Also heard you gutted a paladin, banished a demon, and killed a doppelganger. Which is true?" "All of 'em," Cade replied, dropping a gold coin into her palm. "I need into the Sage's archives. Something about the Radiant Church and a Scandir gem. You in?" Zara's eyes narrowed, but she pocketed the coin. "You're trouble, but your coin's good. Archives are locked tight, wards, guards, the works. I know a way, but it'll cost more than 1 gold, and the church's got spies here. They're calling you the Hero Slayer. Got a plan for them?" Cade adjusted his crossbow, his smirk sharp. "Same as always. Shoot first, ask later. Get me in, Zara. I'll handle the rest." She nodded, tossing the date pit away. "Meet me at the Red Scorpion tonight. Bring more gold, and don't be late." Kaldor's not as safe as you remember. As Zara vanished into the crowd, Cade felt the city's pulse, vibrant, chaotic, and dangerous. The church's bounty loomed, and the gem's power still lingered in his blood. The archives held answers, but every step toward them drew him deeper into a web of vengeance and secrets. Chapter 10. The Archives of Truth. Calder's sun beat down on the spice market, its heat a stark contrast to Dunport's misty chill. Cade navigated the crowded streets, his pack rhino trailing behind, its horned snout parting merchants and beggars alike. The Guild of Sages loomed ahead, a fortress of white stone carved with ancient runes, its towers piercing the cloudless sky. Zara, the smuggler, led the way, her dagger glinting as she wove through alleys to avoid the radiant church's spies. The letter from Lord Griff, tucked in Cade's pouch, burned in his mind. 10,000 gold for his head, and a command to seize the Skandir gem, now dust but still haunting his blood. At the Red Scorpion, a dimly lit tavern smelling of saffron and stale wine, Zara slid into a booth, her eyes scanning the room. "The archives aren't just locked, they're warded to kill," she said, sipping a cup of spiced tea. "The sages don't trust outsiders, especially not hero slayers. There's a smuggler's tunnel under the east wall, but it's rigged with traps, arcane ones, not your usual spikes. I can get you in, but you'll need more than swords and bolts. Got any of those fancy crystals left?" Cade nodded, patting his vest. "Enough to burn through wards. What's the catch? You're not this helpful for 1 gold. He slid another coin across the table, his smirk sharp. Zara pocketed it, leaning closer. "The church has a man inside. High Inquisitor Van, their top hunter. He's no paladin like Maxim. He's a mage killer, trained to break men like you. Word is, he's after the same thing you are. Skandir records in the archives. They say the gem you smashed was one of many, tied to a ritual the church has been running for decades. You're walking into a trap, Cade." Cade's fingers brushed the pouch where the gem's dust lay, wrapped in warded cloth. Its whispers were faint now, but his body still felt off, too heavy, too cold. "Let Varn come," he said. "I'll carve through him like the rest. Get me to the tunnel, Zara. I need those records." She sighed, draining her tea. "Your funeral, Meister. Meet me at midnight, east wall. Bring your rhino. It'll scare off the street rats." She vanished into the crowd, leaving Cade to nurse a tankard of Kaldor's fiery date wine. Midnight found them at the guild's east wall, a shadowed expanse of stone etched with glowing wards. Zara knelt, prying open a hidden grate, its hinges silent from years of smuggler use. "Stay close," she whispered, descending into a damp tunnel lit by flickering moss. Cade followed, his crossbow ready, the rhino's bulk barely fitting. The air grew thick with arcane residue, and the wards hummed, sensing intruders. Zara pointed to a glyph on the wall, pulsing red. "Blood ward. You know these. Too much, and it drains you. Too little, and it fries you." Cade pricked his palm, letting a drop fall onto the glyph. It dimmed, but the tunnel shook, and a spectral hound materialized, its jaws dripping shadow. Cade fired a silver-tipped bolt, banishing it, but more glyphs flared. "Move!" Zara hissed, sprinting as the tunnel filled with ghostly snarls. Cade tossed a crystal, its light scattering the spirits, and they reached a sealed door. Obsidian, like the shadow basilicas. He pressed his bleeding palm to it, chanting a Calderon spell. The door groaned open, revealing the archives, a vast chamber of shelves, scrolls, and glowing orbs lit by floating lanterns. Zara stayed back, guarding the tunnel. "Find your answers, Meister. I'm not dying for your quest." Cade nodded, stepping inside, his boots echoing on marble. The air was heavy, the orbs pulsing as if alive. He scanned the shelves, searching for Skandir records, when a voice cut through the silence. "Cade of Kaldor," it said, cold and precise. High Inquisitor Vaughn stepped from the shadows, a tall figure in black robes, his staff topped with a sunburst sigil. His eyes glowed faintly, and his hands crackled with arcane energy. "You've meddled in powers beyond you. The gem was ours, a key to the Creator's will. Hand over your token, and I might let you die quickly." Cade raised his crossbow, loading a void shard bolt. "The Church summons demons to control heroes, then calls me the heretic? I'm here for the truth, Vaughn. Step aside or you'll bleed like Maxim." Vaughn laughed, raising his staff. "Maxim was a pawn. You're a threat. The Scandir gems bind heroes to our will, ensuring order. You've broken one, but there are others. You'll not leave this place." He unleashed a bolt of white fire, forcing Cade to dive behind a shelf. The wood charred, scrolls crumbling to ash. Cade fired, his bolt grazing Vaughn's shoulder, but the Inquisitor's ward absorbed it. Vaughn countered with a wave of force, slamming Cade against a wall. Pain flared, but Cade rolled, tossing a binding crystal. It shattered, chaining Vaughn's legs, but the Inquisitor broke free, his staff glowing brighter. "You're no mage," Vaughn sneered. "Just a butcher with tricks." Cade drew his black steel longsword, its runes blazing. "Tricks are enough." He charged, slashing through Vaughn's wards, their clash shaking the chamber. Vaughn's staff struck Cade's side, burning through his jacket, but Cade drove his blade into Vaughn's thigh, drawing blood. The Inquisitor staggered, chanting, and the orbs flared, summoning spectral knights. Cade fought back, his sword cutting through spirits, but Vaughn was relentless, his magic draining Cade's strength. The gem's dust in his pouch pulsed, whispering, "Take my power." Desperate, Cade smeared the dust on his blade, its runes glowing black. He struck Vaughn's staff, shattering it, and the Inquisitor fell, clutching his chest. "You've doomed yourself," Vaughn gasped, blood pooling. "The gems, they're alive. You're marked." Cade ignored him, searching the shelves. He found a tome marked with Scandir runes, its pages detailing a ritual. The Church used gems to bind heroes, siphoning their power to summon Scandir demons, creating a cycle of control. Destroying a gem freed its demon, but tainted the user. Cade. He pocketed the tome, his vision blurring as the gem's chill spread through him. Zara appeared, panting. "We're out of time. Guards are coming." Cade nodded, grabbing Vaughn's sunburst sigil as proof of his death. They fled through the tunnel, the rhino charging ahead, as wards exploded behind them. At the Red Scorpion, Zara poured him a drink. "You look like death, Meister. Find what you needed." Cade nodded, the tome heavy in his pack. "The Church's secret. They're building an army of controlled heroes, using demons. I'm marked Zara. Tainted, but I'm not done." She smirked, raising her cup. "Then you'd better run fast. Caldor's crawling with Church spies now." Chapter 11. The Slayer's Dusk. Caldor's dunes glowed under a blood-red sunset, casting long shadows across the city's mud-brick walls. Cade sat atop his pack rhino, the tome from the Guild of Sages archives tucked in his pack, its Scandir secrets weighing heavier than the gold he'd earned. The Radiant Church's ritual, using gems to bind heroes and summon demons, explained their hunt for him, but the taint in his blood, left by the shattered gem, was a sentence of its own. His body ached, colder each day, and faint whispers still lingered, urging him to embrace the Scandir's power. He'd killed High Inquisitor Vaughn, but the Church's reach was vast, and Lord Griff's bounty ensured no peace. Zara leaned against a market stall, her dagger twirling as she eyed the crowd. "You're a wanted man, Meister," she said, tossing him a water skin. "Church enforcers are flooding Caldor. Velgard's ships docked this morning. You've got the tome, Vaughn's sigil, and a death wish. What's next? Run, fight, or something stupider?" Cade drank deeply, the water warm but grounding, Fight, he said, his smirk faint. The church's ritual needs more gems. If I destroy their source, they lose their grip on heroes. The tome mentions a vault under Velgard's cathedral, where it all started. I end it there. He patted his crossbow, its bolts gleaming. Then I'm done. Zara laughed, shaking her head. You're mad. Velgard's a fortress, and Griff's no fool. You'll need an army, or at least a plan. Got one? Cade pulled Varn's sunbashul, burst sigil from his pouch. This'll get me close. Church won't expect their own badge. I sneak in, burn the vault, get out. You want in? Gold's good, but glory's better. She smirked, pocketing another coin he slid her way. Glory's overrated, but I'll get you a ship to Velgard. After that, you're on your own. Don't die, Meister. I'd miss your coin. By dawn, Cade boarded a smuggler's skiff, its captain a grizzled woman named Kyle, who asked no questions for the right price. The voyage to Velgard was swift, the sea calm but heavy with the weight of his task. The taint spread, his hands trembling at night, but he focused on the tome's details. The vault held 13 gems, each a Scandir anchor. Destroying them would free the bound heroes, and maybe himself. Velgard's cathedral loomed over the city, a monolith of black stone crowned with golden spires. Cade, cloaked in a stolen church robe, flashed Varn's sigil at the gates. The guards, zealots in sunburst armor, let him pass, their eyes dull from arcane control. The cathedral's interior was a labyrinth of stained glass and altars, its air thick with incense and power. Cade descended to the crypts, guided by the tome's map, his crossbow hidden under his cloak. The vault was a chamber of obsidian, its walls pulsing with Scandir runes. 13 gems glowed on a central altar, their light casting shadows that writhed like serpents. Cade loaded a void-shard bolt, but a voice stopped him cold. "You're persistent, heretic," Lord Griff said, stepping from the darkness. His armor was gold-plated, his mace crackling with divine energy. Flanking him were 2 paladins, their swords drawn, and a Scandir demon, half shadow, half flame, chained to the altar. "The gems are the Creator's will. You freed one demon, tainted yourself. Join us, or die." Cade raised his crossbow, smirking. "I'm no one's pawn, Griff. Your Creator is a lie. You're just slavers with fancier robes." He fired, the bolt striking a gem. It shattered, and the demon roared, its chains weakening. The paladins charged, but Cade drew his black steel longsword, its runes blazing with the taint's dark power. The fight was brutal. Cade slashed through one paladin, his blade cutting divine armor like cloth, but the second grazed his shoulder, blood soaking his cloak. Griff swung his mace, its force cracking the floor, but Cade rolled, tossing a binding crystal. It chained the second paladin, giving him time to smash another gem. The demon broke free, turning on Griff, its claws raking his armor. "You fool!" Griff roared, blasting the demon with holy light. "You'll doom us all!" Cade ignored him, shattering gem after gem, each explosion weakening the vault's wards. The taint surged, his vision blurring, but he fought on, driven by rage and defiance. Griff felled the demon, but Cade was ready. He drove his sword into Griff's chest, the taint fueling his strike. The Lord collapsed, gasping, "The Creator will judge you." Cade twisted the blade, ending him, and smashed the final gem. The vault shook, runes fading, and the taint in his blood burned, then stilled. The whispers stopped, but his body felt frail, mortal again. Cade staggered out, the cathedral collapsing behind him. Velgard's streets were chaos. Freed heroes clashed with church zealots, the ritual's end breaking their control. He slipped to the docks, Kael's skiff waiting. "You look like death," she said, casting off. "Where to?" "Anywhere but here," Cade rasped, slumping against the rail. The tome was ash, the gems gone, the church crippled. His wounds would heal, but the taint's scars, physical and not, would linger. Back in Calder, weeks later, Cade sat in the Red Scorpion, a new jacket on his shoulders, his pack rhino stabled outside. Zara joined him, sliding a tankard over. "Heard Velgard's burning," she said, smirking. "Churches in tatters, heroes running wild. You're doing?" Cade sipped, his smirk faint. "Maybe. I'm retired now. Cobbler again, maybe." He tossed her a final gold coin. "Keep the change." She laughed, pocketing it. "You'll never quit, Meister. Trouble finds you." Cade leaned back, the sun setting over Caldor's dunes. Trouble might come, but for now, he'd earned his dusk. Thank you for listening to my story to the end. Share your opinion in the comments. What do you think about it? If you liked this story, do not forget to share it with your friends and like it. And if you are new to the channel, then be sure to turn on notifications because there are many more amazing stories ahead of you.